like my children will never eat food from a gas stove, like that kind of shit. And there's so many of these, like it's hard to tell who's what and what's real, and it's just one of those things where it's hard when you're looking things through text because people are sneaky. They're really good at it, and people are so ridiculous in real life that a really subtle parody is very hard to discern. So is that hate speech? If someone's doing it as a parody, is that hate speech? Like, right. When do you decide that something is hateful?
And that's exactly why traditionally in this country, judges have always said, well, they haven't always said it, but they eventually came around to the idea that we can't involve ourselves in these questions. They're too difficult, and it's not our job. We're going to step in only the most extreme cases, right? So the current standard is, the Supreme Court case, Brandenburg v. Ohio, which outlaws imminent incitement to imminent lawless action, right? So you have to be basically saying,
let's go get them.
Go get them. Let's,
break into the White House.
Shoot that person. That's illegal speech, right? Anything short of that, we're going to stay out of it because it's too confusing. It's too complicated, right? Like if you start getting into what's satire, what isn't, what's incitement, what isn't, like as we see at companies like Twitter, you can spend endless amounts of time building sandcastles trying to figure out what is what, and it will always end in a place where the government interprets it to its greatest advantage. Yeah, and that's why we don't want it. I mean, it ultimately it's not a good thing for most people. But
it's just very hard for people to realize. Even though this thing that you're talking about wielding, this weapon, will work against your enemies, it can ultimately also be used against you. That was the thing with the Patriot Act. When the indefinite detention, when they were talking about just being able to detain people, and Obama was like, don't worry, well, I would never do that. But you're not going to be the president forever. Like someone else is going to come along. And perfect example, that next person was Trump.
Right.
Well, what if someone's crazier than him? Like, what if something happens? What if there's some sort of a nuke goes off somewhere and then everybody gets way more radicalized? And then you can get a really fucking insane, like a Stephen King character. What was that movie where the one evil guy becomes president? And
oh, God, the Greg Stilson.
Yes.
Yeah, Dead Zone.
Dead Zone, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not far removed from that in terms of plausible plots that this wacky country can fall into. And that's the same thing with censorship. Like, they can use it against you. So, like, if you think you're using this to push back against right-wing extremism, they can use that to push back against progressive ideas that would genuinely benefit good people.
Right.
Genuinely benefit families, genuinely benefit people in need, genuinely benefit people in terms of healthcare and education. They can stop that.
Absolutely.
They can stop that if it's unprofitable with the same sort of tools.
Absolutely.
You gotta have free speech. It's the most important thing we have, and it's the one thing that separates us from everybody else. So when you have liberals and progressives that are screaming against removing people from platforms and stopping this and stopping that, understand what the fuck you're saying.
Yeah, and they don't. Right? Yeah, I mean, like
it's just convenience. It'll work against my enemies.
You talk about how they can use it to shut down things on the other side.
Yeah.
Like, we see reports in these files of government agencies sending lists of accounts that are accusing the United States of vaccine corruption. Now, what they're really talking about is pressuring foreign countries to not use generic vaccines, right? And that's a liberal issue. That's a progressive issue. Like the progressives want generic vaccines to be available to poor countries. Okay, but you can use this tool to eliminate speech about that if you want to, right?
Yeah.
Like I think that's what they don't get is that the significance is not who. The significance is the tool. Like, what is it capable of doing?
Right.
Right. How easily is it employed? And how often is it used? And they don't focus on that. They focus on, oh, it's Donald Trump, so therefore we want it. I mean, that's where their mistake is.
It's a very interesting and very nuanced conversation as to what should be allowed and what should not be allowed and why. And I think it's complex and it's ever changing, and it depends upon the tools that are involved, and it depends upon what are you talking about. And then it also depends upon, like, here's a big one that drives me nuts about this January 6th. Why is it okay for the FBI to have agents that incite people to go into the Capitol? Why is that okay? What benefit is that for society? Like, how much influence did they have? How much rabble-rousing influence did they have? How much coercion? I mean, why is that okay?
So this is another topic that is fascinating because it hasn't gotten a ton of press. But if you go back all the way to the early 70s, the CIA and the FBI got in a lot of trouble for various things. The CIA for assassination schemes involving people like Castro, the FBI for, COINTELPRO and other programs, domestic surveillance. And they made changes after congressional hearings, the Church Committee, that basically said, the FBI, from now on, you have to have some kind of reason to be following somebody or investigating somebody. You have to have some kind of criminal predicate. And we want you mainly to be investigating cases. But after 9/11, they peeled all this back. There was a series of attorney general memos that essentially refashioned what the FBI does. And now they don't have to be doing crime fighting all the time. Now they can be doing basically 100% intelligence gathering all the time. They can be infiltrating groups for no reason at all, not to build cases, but just to get information. And so that's why they're there. They're in these groups. They're posted up outside of the homes of people who they find suspicious, but they're not building cases. They're not investigating crimes. It's sort of like Minority Report, right? It's pre-crime.
Yeah,
and the public has accepted this, without much trouble.
There's a little bit of pushback from people online, and then it goes away, where there's no real repercussions. Like the Governor Whitmer case,
right?
Where there's 14 people involved in kidnapping, and 12 of them are FBI informants,
right?
Which is fucking bonkers. And then the two guys who are doing hard time, they're like, we thought it was fantasy. Like, we're idiots. We didn't know. Like, one of the guys literally said, I never planned on doing anything. To me, it was just fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean...
They're morons who get talked into this. And imagine you're getting talked into this by 12 people who turn out to be informants.
Right.
That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah, and why are there so many informants?
Yeah.
Like hanging around with
fucking head of the Proud Boys.
Right.
The head of the Proud Boys was an
that true?
informant.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
What's his name? Enrique Tarrio? Yeah, pull that up. He was a fucking informant. So this guy who is at the head of the Proud Boys, the guy who's organizing the things, he was an FBI informant.
Wow.
Amazing. Do you know the story of the Proud Boys? The real origin story?
No, I don't, actually.
Oh, my God. The origin story is amazing. The origin story, here we go. Proud Boys leader was prolific informer for law enforcement. Enrique Tarrio, leader of the Proud Boys extremist group, has a past informer for federal and local law enforcement, repeatedly working undercover for investigators after he was arrested in 2012. According to a former prosecutor in a transcript of a 2014 federal court proceeding obtained by Reuters. So the Proud Boys started off as a joke on Anthony Cumia's radio show, where Gavin McGinnis, who was a regular guest, they made a joke about one of the guys who was an intern. And he was, they were doing a joke about him being in a musical, and the musical, like, Proud of My Boy. And they were singing a song, like, we're the Proud Boys, proud of my boy. And they're like, we're going to put together a group called the Proud Boys. And so they decided to have, like, this fake group of people. And to get into this group, they had to punch you in the arm, and you have to read off, like, remember different breakfast cereals. Like, it's all like really hilarious, stupid shit. But then Gavin, Gavin's one of those guys that just like, he's a legitimate maniac, which was great when he was running Vice and not so great when he gets involved in extremist groups.
Right.
And so his idea was like, fuck these crazy Antifa people. We're going to develop our own group. We're going to go after them. We're going to fight them when we go to these, because they would show up at any time he had to do speeches, and they would protest him. He's like, we're going to beat the Proud Boys. We're going to show them. We're going to fight them. And I'm like, hey, like, that doesn't end well.
Right.
And obviously it ended terribly. And that's where the Proud Boys origin story came from.
That's amazing.
It came from the Anthony Cumia radio show. From Opie and Anthony. Anthony from Opie and Anthony. Dude, it's a joke. Like, Anthony came on the podcast and told the origin story of it. There's a famous clip that's on YouTube, and it's hilarious.
And then it ends up being like, a central issue in like the presidential campaign,
yes.
right? Like,
yes, it's nuts.
America couldn't be more ridiculous,
dude. But if you know Anthony and you know Gavin, like I've known Gavin forever, Gavin's just nuts. Like, he's not an extremist. He's not an evil person. He's just nuts. But he fucked up when he created that group. I'm like, dude, you can't just punch people in the face, because you punch people in the face, they come back with a bat. Now you have a war. Like this, you just can't just say we're gonna go hit people. Like, that always ends badly.
Right.
But he just was having fun and kept pushing it. He's a push the limits, push the envelope guy, and then. Now it's this hate group that people bring up in political speech, and the Proud Boys and the white supremacists and like the Proud Boys.
And they have a life of their own now, right?
Now it's beyond. They don't even like him anymore.
Right.
They kicked him out of a meeting. He went to a meeting in Vegas. He's persona non grata in the Proud Boys now. He can't even go to a thing that he started as a joke has now completely ran away from him. Because like with any group, right? If you have a group that people can join, anyone can join. Well, anyone could join. You're going to get assholes to join it.
Of course.
And you're also going to get law enforcement. And that's how you got this Enrique Tarrio guy.
Right.
Wild.
Yeah. That's unbelievable.
It's wild.
So they I guess they found his cooperator agreement.
Yeah.
And what, did he continue to be the head of the Proud Boys after that?
I think they arrested him recently. That's the interesting, also the thing about these guys is they don't get off scot-free. Like, they make you work as an informant, they make you be a snitch, and then they put you in jail.
Right.
They'll still put you in jail, but just they won't put you in jail for life. Like,
right.
Okay, we'll give you 10 years instead of 50. And so these guys just do it anyway. I mean, they treat you like a real bitch. Like, they don't treat you like a half a bitch or like, hey, we're going to work out a deal. No, they treat you like a bitch. 2 days before a far-right mob stormed the U.S. Capitol, police arrested the leader of the Proud Boys militia group for burning a Black Lives Matter flag at a different protest.
Well, that's convenient.
Meanwhile, he's black, which is hilarious.
Right.
The fact that, like, you can't burn that flag. Meanwhile, if you burn an American flag, no problem at all.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
I mean, I'm for that, but yeah.
You're for them arresting people for burning flags?
No. I'm fine with people burning flags if they feel like it.
I don't think you should arrest people for burning a flag. Like, I don't think you should arrest people for burning a piece of paper.
Right.
Like, you should be able to burn. If you want to burn something in protest, it's not like we can't make more flags.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, we got plenty.
If you want to buy a flag and burn it, okay.
Yeah.
That's your big thing?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think we should make flags out of asbestos. solve all the problems.
that would make for a lot of unphotogenic protests, but that would be funny.
Like, what the fuck? I'm just astounded by the lack of ability to see the future. The lack of ability to see where all this goes. That, like, in letting this happen, in not being outraged, in letting the government creep into all aspects of your life in this way. There's no net positive. In the end, it's just government control of speech and thought and content and everything you do.
Right, and complete capture of the media and all of that, and that's kind of what we're trying to fight against. And it's the one heartening thing is that the quote unquote mainstream press is now really, it's in free fall now, right? Its influence is more and more limited every day. The problem is that something needs to step up in its place, and but they're just they don't have any authority at all outside their own little bubble anymore.
Propaganda is a scary thing. And when you have mainstream news organizations going along with what appears to be propaganda with no pushback at all, like where's journalism? Like journalism is such an important part of any sort of functioning culture where people need to find out what is the real information. And there's people that have a responsibility to try to find that information and then give it to people so they can make informed decisions. And they can know what is the workings behind the machine. What's the wiring? What's happening? How are these decisions getting made? When the corporate media doesn't do that anymore, we're fucked. And you, in your time, have seen that. You've seen this transition into like the media becoming an arm of propaganda as opposed to what it was in the 70s or what it was in the 60s where it was the news. This is what's happening. This is what we've uncovered. This is our undercover investigation. These are our facts. Our informant has told us this. Now we know that. Nixon did this. Kennedy was aware of that. We know these things now because of real journalism.
Right.
And it seems like, for whatever reason, there's two branches going on with journalism. There's people like you and Barry Weiss and Glenn Greenwald and the Substack people that are like, hey, this is not what I fucking signed up for.
Right.
I'm here to do actual real journalism, and you people in these gigantic mainstream organizations are losing your fucking minds. You're crazy, and you're doing it for so many reasons, because Trump sucks, because you're pushing a woke agenda, because you want whatever the reason is. Like, you've decided to become a part of a propaganda machine, and it's not journalism anymore.
Right. Yeah.
You're ignoring really important stories that are inconvenient to the narrative that you feel like it's your obligation to push.
Yeah. Remember when Trump became president and he was making noise about not letting certain people have credentials to get into the White House?
Yeah.
And there was this big hue and cry like, oh my God, he's not going to let us into the White House. And my first reaction to that was, who fucking cares if you're not let into the White House? You have an adversarial relationship already. You're supposed to with government, right? If they don't let you in, just report on it anyway. Like, it's not a big deal. But for the new generation of journalists who've come in, they imagine themselves, because they're socially the same people that they're reporting on. They hang out in the same circles. They go to the same parties. The idea of not being let behind the rope line is an atrocity to them. They don't understand it, and they see their role as helping explain the point of view of power. I mean, it's just what we were talking about with Brian Stelter before. Like my job here is to kind of sell this to the population.
Yes.
Whereas the old school journalists were not like that. Like they saw their role as, we're patriotic, like we love our country, and if it does the right thing, we'll report that. But if it fucks up, we got to report that too. Like, our job is to ask difficult questions, and if we have difficult truths, we got to report those things. And so we're not really on your side. Like, we're not your friends. You can hang out with us. We can hang out with you at a campaign stop, but there's supposed to be tension there. There's always supposed to be tension there. And what you see now is that there's no tension at all, right? Like, there's just this sort of seamless community of people who all think the same way. Whether it's Rachel Maddow or Don Lemon or whoever it is, and some Biden administration official, like they're all kind of on the same page. They see themselves as part of the same group. They see themselves as having the same mission. But the press has to have its own mission, or else it's not legitimate.
Well, I don't think they're journalists. I mean, they're really just television propagandists. That's what they are, and they're working for these enormous corporations, and it benefits those corporations to have a narrative, and so you have a spokesperson for the narrative. They're not. There's no way Don Lemon is a journalist.
Right.
Like, there's no way Brian Stelter is a journalist. They're just not.
Right. But
They are the way, like, that insurance lady on those insurance commercials is a stand-up comic. You know what I mean? Like,
the progressive lady.
Yeah, is she really a comedian? I guess she might make a few people laugh, like, maybe, you know. But if she comes into the green room of the comedy club, we're all going to look at her and go, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Like, this is, you know, it's not like Sarah Silverman showing up. She's not really a comedian. That lady she's a paid spokesman for the insurance company that just happens to make you laugh.
Right.
Like, and what those people are is paid spokesmen for the narrative that just happen to be saying what's happening in the world, but they're not journalists.
Right. Yeah, they're reading off, a version of something, and then their idea of journalism is sort of digging up facts to defend whatever that is.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And not looking at things objectively.
There's
a very clear narrative, and you have to push that narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And when it changes, you don't say a goddamn thing. When the science changes and when new information comes out that refutes everything you've said in the past, you just shut the fuck up and keep moving.
Right. They do that, and they shouldn't do that because again, it's another thing that loses you faith with audiences, right?
Yes.
Like, and this is another thing that drives me crazy about this propagandistic model of media, is that it, in addition to being wrong, it doesn't work, right?
Yeah.
Like, propaganda it only goes so far. You actually need people to trust you, and trust is a complicated thing. You have to have a relationship with your audiences, and audiences will not believe you if they see you making a mistake and then they see you not owning up to it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is why, you and I both have had this experience of saying something wrong and then coming out and saying, you know what, I screwed that up. Like, I did that. I made a really bad call about the beginning of the Ukraine war. I didn't believe the reports that were coming out. They sounded wrong to me. And I kind of wrote a sarcastic column about how this is ridiculous. Everyone's being so credulous about this. And then, of course, the invasion happened shortly after that, and I looked like an idiot. But you got to come out and say after that, you know what?
I fucked up.
I fucked up. I was over my skis on that thing. And if you don't do that,
they never trust you.
They never trust
and
you.
they shouldn't trust you.
Right.
And you should. When you fuck up, you should own it. It's
right.
like you're just a human being, and you're talking about things in real time. Especially when you're doing a podcast, you're literally thinking out loud publicly.
Right.
And and it becomes permanent record.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. No, I don't know how that's got to be, incredibly difficult to, you're not even sitting there doing what I do, is just choosing my words carefully and typing them, right? Like,
a lot of times I'm intoxicated. It's a fucking good solid amount of the time. Yeah. No, it's but that's also why people like it, because they feel like you're really hanging out with them, having a conversation, because that's what it sounds like.
Right.
Because it is what it's like. I mean, it's like the same way I talk to you. You and I could be at dinner right now.
Right.
And we would probably be having the same conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And people can pick up on that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that, I always thought that was, one of the reasons that your show is so successful is that people don't detect that there's something staged about it, but you can see that so clearly in every other kind of media now, that, it's just, I don't know.
It's a dirty business.
It's a dirty business.
It's a dirty business, and it's dirty for them too, because if they could be free, they would like to. I think almost everybody would like to just be able to be themselves and have their own opinions and be able to express themselves and be able to think about things openly. But when you are working for a major news organization and you have an enormous paycheck every week that comes to you, if you keep this thing going, you have to keep this charade going, keep this con going. You're going to keep going. You're going to be Rachel Maddow. And that's I love the fact that the way you compared Rachel Maddow to Bill O'Reilly. You're like, it's the same person.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's just one's doing it with progressive values and one's doing it with right-wing values.
Right.
And you were really the first person who's like a liberal guy to openly say that. I'm like, yes, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, no, it's you identify an audience, you give them stuff they want to hear, you do it over and over again, rinse, repeat, blah blah blah, and look, that's a dangerous pattern that you can fall into when the business works the way it does, but people do it, and the converse of that is that if you work in these organizations, and this is something that, believe it or not, Noam Chomsky wrote about 1 million years ago in a book called Manufacturing Consent, like you see coming up in the business that when somebody tries to buck the system and tries to force through an unpopular story or refuses to write a story that's not true or does anything that the editors don't like, they see that those people are moved out of the business sooner rather than later, right? They just sort of end up being washed out with reputations for being difficult people. Chris Hedges is somebody who comes to mind, right? Like they kind of just squeeze you out. There's no particular thing that happens, and that just sends signals down the ranks of people in journalism that if you want to get ahead, just keep doing the shit that we want you to do. You don't have to be a genius to figure out what that is. Just keep doing it, and you'll eventually rise up through the ranks. And before you know it, you'll have your own show, or you'll be running a desk, but you won't have anything to say because early on, you'll have made the decision to abandon your individuality. That's the key to the whole thing, is that it's not people who are making these big decisions to sell out when they're 50. They make the decision to sell out when they're 22 or 23, like at the very start, when they first see it and they understand how the business works and they start climbing. That's when they sell out. So by the time they get to be that, older, it's who they are.
Well, you see it in politics too, right? Like you see it like people like AOC, who starts out as this really kind of inspiring story. Girl wore her shoes out campaigning, just walking around, going door to door, and now she's cozying up to the likes of Nancy Pelosi, and they're all in this weird sort of group together making decisions, and people don't like it. People don't like it. They see where it's going. Like, oh, if you want to be president, you have to go down this road, and you're going down that road.
Exactly.
And you're going to be that lady that presses the button that drops the bombs. You're going to be that lady that sends the fucking drones out and finds some way to justify the fact that it kills 90% civilians. You're going to be that person, because that's where that person starts. You start out idealistic. You start out this person who's very progressive and really wants, to help lower income families, and really wants to help inner city schools, and really wants to help all. And then along the way, you get indoctrinated into the system and you figure out how everything works. This is how you have to do it. This is how you play ball. This is the bill you have to sign. This is what you have to get in on. In order to get this, we have to do that. In order to get that, we have to do this. Mm-hmm. And next thing you know, you're a fucking politician.
Right.
And you're the Speaker of the House, and you're doing insider trading and making hundreds of millions of dollars because everybody else is doing it.
Right. Remember when she came in and everybody was... There was a whole clan of sort of senior Democratic Party officials in Congress who were giving her a hard time because she was on Twitter a lot, right? And she was being successful with Twitter. And they were like, you have to make the choice between whether you want to be on social media or whether you want to be a politician. And I actually admired her at the time. I didn't agree with her about everything, but I like you, I thought her story was interesting. I thought that she had taken an alternative path to getting elected. She was very clever in her use of social media. It's better to be good on Twitter than it is to whore out your beliefs to some donor. You know what I'm saying? But once she got into Congress, they let you know, right? Look, if you ever want to be a committee chair, if you want to get in line for these powerful positions, if you want to get appropriations money sent to whatever district, you got to play ball, right?
Yeah.
And if you do, then you very quickly start climbing the ladder. If you don't, you end up just somebody who tends to be on the outside and is portrayed as a nut.
Bernie Sanders
or Ron Paul, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how it works. There are people who are kind of like in Congress. You might disagree with what they believe, but they're honest. And you can tell they're honest because the leadership hates them, and doesn't give them the opportunity. But you're absolutely right. It's the same thing. It's this organizational sort of belief system. You either have to go with it or not. I just think it's especially offensive in journalism because the whole idea of being a journalist, you're not doing it for money or power. If you're going into this business, what are you doing it for if you're not going to be trying to break cool stories?
Yeah.
Like go into some other thing, go into finance or right? Like
yeah.
I never understood that part of it doesn't make any sense to me.
Do you think that this understanding of this now, and because people are talking about it, and then the birth of Substack and the fact that it's become very successful, and that people are flocking towards genuine independent journalists, whether they're on social media like YouTube or Twitter or Substack, or do you think that this is in many ways like changing the way young people see the possibilities? Because I think young people looking at the two options, like one, you can kind of be a hero, or two, you can kind of be a whore.
Right.
There's a lot of whores. They don't seem happy. These whores seem very upset at everything, and they're always pulling their fucking hair out, and they're probably on antidepressants. And then you have these people that are like breaking stories, and it's like, oh my God, journalism is alive. It's just alive in like when people travel with a fire and they have like embers and they're blowing on them and they get them to the next camp and then they can start a fire with it. That's journalism right now.
Absolutely.
It's not this raging bonfire that everybody can go get warmed. The information will warm everyone. No, it's like these people have like small wooden vessels filled with embers and they're blowing on them as they run through the woods and people are fanning them to try to keep them alive. But I think for young people that are considering paths, like what to do with their future, they don't want to be contained. They want to be free. And because of social media and because of the fact that any kid can just start a YouTube page and just start talking about things.
Exactly.
And because of that kind of the ability to now do your own show, becoming independent is becoming not just more plausible but more attractive.
Absolutely. And I think, the younger people have less tolerance for phoniness, or at least historically they did. It's been a little weird lately. I haven't always been sure of that lately. But people who are going to go into journalism when they're 18 or 19, once upon a time, they all wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein or Cy Hirsch or Hunter Thompson or whoever it was. They just wanted to be a rule breaker, somebody who told the truth, and consequences be damned. And because that's what it's about. It's about being free and speaking your mind, right? Like, what is it William Blake said? You can always be ready to speak your mind, and a base man will avoid you, right? Like that's what journalism is. Like you derive power from your willingness to say the unpopular true thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's an attractive, idealistic thing for a young person. But if they see that path closed, they're not going to go into. I mean, why would you go into journalism and try to work at the New Yorker or MSNBC if you know you're never going to get to do that? Basically, you know.
Why would you?
But you can create your own show with almost no overhead and do the same thing and have have a much bigger impact, and you'll have a bigger audience even.
Much bigger.
Right?
That's
Much
what's
bigger.
nuts.
Yeah. I mean, as you know,
Yeah.
as you very well know, right? I mean, that's and these corporate media companies have been living for a long time on their name and on the memory of the prestige that their names inspired. But if they actually had to sell how much reach they had now, they wouldn't have much to talk about, right? Like their audiences are shrinking, their influence is very, very small, and the jobs that they're offering are just less and less exciting for young people.
We were talking about CNN, like how does CNN even keep the lights on? They have an enormous building in Atlanta, giant CNN sign on the front of it, and
Right.
they get terrible ratings.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And they have so many people working there. You have a whole giant building filled with people, and then your product, no one wants it.
Yeah.
People are just accidentally watching it. Flipping through the channels, they're watching it. Like there's nothing compelling that they have to offer, yet they are in the business of selling compelling information. You're literally the most compelling thing because the news is supposed to be one of the most compelling things. Everybody traditionally would come home and watch the evening news because you need to know what the fuck is going on in the world. But now because of social media and because of just websites and phones and just news off your apps, the different apps that people use, Google apps, no one cares anymore. So you're just howling into the wind.
It's something. It's background you see at an airport, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. They have a huge building in New York too. The Time Warner Center and
bizarre.
And they're not even in the top 20, I think, of cable news shows anymore, right? So and then look what happened with CNN Plus. I mean, they went and they hired Chris Wallace, and they were going to launch this big subscription service, CNN Plus, where I guess the idea was they were going to get people to pay to watch the same stuff they were already refusing to watch for free. Then they had to cancel the service after 3 weeks.
Yeah, they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it.
I mean, how could they not have seen that?
How could they think that people wanted to pay for something that they don't like for free?
Yeah, I don't know. But the what's clear is that they don't have any conception of where the way out is for them, right?
Well, they're like Blockbuster Video. There's no way out.
Well, I think there would be a way out if they started actually doing their jobs, but they just don't know what that is anymore.
Well, has the new guy said they want to switch away from opinion, editorial type news stories and public people to people that just disseminate objective views of information. Just like this is what's happening in the world. This is what's going on. This is the crash that happened. This is that.
They have said that.
But is it too late? The problem is like people now have associated CNN with bullshit propaganda.
Right.
That they treat you like you're dumb. They think you're stupid. They think, that you could just tell people that someone's taking horse dewormer and you could just repeat it over and over again and people believe it. I mean,
right.
The amount of damage that they did to their own reputation saying things like that, it's so, because most people would look at that and go, is he really doing that? And then some people would go, well, wait, that's not even true. Like, wait a minute, CNN says this? What else are they lying about?
Right.
What about international stories? What about financial stories? What about things that have to do with crypto? Or what narratives are they spitting out that are just bullshit?
Right. And there's a lot of them,
Yeah.
You remember when the Bountygate story came out, and then
Bountygate? What's Bountygate?
Bountygate was this weird story that came out. I think it was in 2020. When basically they were reporting that Russians were paying bounties in Afghanistan to kill American soldiers.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be like, basically one theory that somebody within the intelligence community was positing. The army itself came out a couple months later and said, yeah, we don't really have evidence for this. And then, a year later, they came out even more strongly and said, we can't back that up.
Well, here's a crazier one: the Russiagate.
Oh well, yeah.
That's the craziest one.
Absolutely.
The fact that they pushed that for 3 years and they've never come out and said, we were misinformed. That is not the case. There really wasn't this crazy collusion between Russia and Donald Trump. And in fact, there was some information that seems to point to that Hillary Clinton had involvement with Russia too. And that they've kind of all had involvement with Russia. And that this wasn't some grand conspiracy to elect a Russian puppet as the president of the United States. Sorry.
Yeah, it was a 3.5 year sort of mass hysteria experiment, right? And I mean, this is one of the things. It's one of the reasons I got kind of quietly moved out of mainstream journalism, right? Like, I didn't have a particular problem at Rolling Stone, but I early on in the Trump years, I said there's something wrong with the story. I think there are elements of it that aren't provable. I don't think we should be running this stuff, And then before I knew it, I was working independently. But anyway, at the Twitter files, we're finding stuff that now tells you absolutely like what actually the truth was during that time. Like, for instance, one of the big Russiagate stories was from early 2018 when Devin Nunes, remember he was the Republican congressman, he was the head of the House Intelligence Committee at the time. He wrote a memo basically saying, we think they faked FISA applications. We think the FBI used the Steele dossier to try to get surveillance authority against some Trump people like Carter Page. And we think they lied and cheated to do that. And so he submitted this classified memo. And not only was he denounced everywhere as a liar and wrong and all that, but there was this big story that was all over the place that a hashtag released the memo had been amplified by Russian bots. You probably don't remember this, but this story was everywhere in January and February of 2018. This idea that released the memo was basically a Russian operation and that Nunes was benefiting from it. Well, I'm reading the Twitter files. I was looking for something else entirely. And then suddenly we come across a string of emails internally at Twitter where the Twitter officials are saying, we're not finding any Russians at all behind this hashtag. And we told the members of Congress who asked about this that there are no Russians involved in this because Dianne Feinstein, Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut, they all came out with this accusation about it being linked to Russia. We told them that there's nothing there, and they went and they did it anyway, And so there are lots of stories like that now that are kind of falling apart, right? And
most people, I think, don't even know that the Russia collusion thing was bullshit. I think the general public that heard that Russiagate narrative, the people that haven't looked into it past what they've seen on television probably still believe there's some sort of collusion.
Yeah, because there's never been a reckoning for it.
Right.
I mean, after the WMD thing, which, went on for a surprisingly long time considering how little evidence there ever was for that. And considering that there were lots of journalists at the time who would have liked to have proved Bush wrong about that, it still took years and years and years for the business to admit that they screwed that up. They blamed it almost entirely on one person, Judy Miller from New York Times.
Really?
Other people who got that story just as wrong, like Jeffrey Goldberg, he's now the editor of Atlantic Magazine. Like, there are all kinds of people who totally screwed that story up and got promoted. And so there was at least a little bit of reflection about getting a big story wrong.
That's such a big story.
Right?
That's such a big story.
Yeah.
The fact that there really were no weapons of mass destruction and we really did start a war for nothing that really did kill somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 million innocent people.
Right. It's over a fake news story.
Yeah, over a fake news story.
I mean, there should be sorrow,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, within news organizations about a mistake of that magnitude.
And the fact there's no repercussions, and the people were promoted that promoted that very same story that led to the public support of it, of the war.
Yeah, and not only did we promote the people who got that story wrong, except in that one case with Judy Miller, who was sort of villainized. But people were fired who were questioning it. Like Phil Donahue had a show, a very highly rated show on MSNBC at the time. He lost his job. Jesse,
What did he say?
He was just very critical of the war effort. He didn't believe the whole thing, and he thought.
And that's why he lost his show?
Yeah, they took him off the air.
Wow.
Jesse Ventura, we'll tell you the story. He lives in a compound in Mexico.
Yeah.
Casa MSNBC, he calls it, because they hired him thinking that because he was a former Navy SEAL, he was going to be pro-war. When they found out on the phone that he didn't feel that way, that he was very skeptical of the whole thing, they basically bought out his contract. They just paid him the balance and said, thanks, but no thanks. And, we're not going to want that show of yours. So he was right. But he, instead of going on the air, he got a mansion in Mexico, the business has a history of doing stuff like this, but at least in the WMD episode, they had the decency to admit now, a decade later, we screwed that up. It has the reputation of being a media mistake. They haven't done that yet with the Russia stuff.
Well, the WMD thing, though, there's no repercussions because over time, everybody had kind of either forgotten about it or been overwhelmed by news stories. And when the WMD came out, when that sort of thing came out at the beginning of the war, you're also dealing with a very different internet. And the news cycle wasn't as extreme and dynamic. Like nowadays, things that happen, like no one gives a shit that Epstein was murdered and that the cameras were shut off and that there's no list of all the people that went to the island. That's just gone. There's too much new stuff to come that it's in front of your eyes that you have to pay attention to.
Right.
That's the news cycle.
We do need a few more answers on that one, I think.
You think?
Yeah.
I mean, it's wild. So that's the news cycle of today that is just overwhelming, and then it just keeps coming forward and you can't stop it. When you were working at Rolling Stone, did you interact with Jan Wenner a lot?
Yeah.
Did you see my conversation
I did.
that I had with him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you think that was kind of sad in a way?
Very, very. Yeah. I mean, look, Jan was always good to me, He didn't agree with my politics. He didn't agree with my approach to the job a lot. And I know that my stories got him in a lot of trouble socially. So that came out from time to time. But he never went to the step of firing me, and he let me do the stories that I wanted to do for the most part. But I think as you found out, like, he somewhere along the line he lost interest in being part of a real actual journalistic venture, right?
Yeah. I think he has a hard time concentrating on the nuances of all these different things and balancing out, like when he was talking about the government regulating the internet. That was the most shocking. Look, I was a fan of the guy because I've always been a fan of Rolling Stone, and I'm a giant fan of Hunter S. Thompson. And I knew he and Hunter had this very close relationship, and I wanted to bring him in.
It was complicated, but yeah.
I'm sure, but I wanted to talk to him just about that. I mean, and that I enjoyed that. But then when it's to say you were a fan of that guy, and now you're talking to me about the government censoring the internet. And when I was like, you're talking about the same people that gave us bad information about weapons of mass destruction that led to a war. And then he's sort of balancing that out. Like, no, those were politicians. Like, that's the government.
Right.
You're talking about the government.
Yeah.
Like to see him try to wrestle with that in his head, and to realize he had never wrestled with it before.
Yeah.
That's what was fucked. It's like, I mean, is he just tired? Is he just older? Or is he just like completely insulated in those liberal cocktail parties where, you know, you have to wear a mask and you have to say this, and if you don't say that, you'll be ostracized from the social group? Like, what kind of narrow bandwidth are you operating on? Like, that you could just say that?
Yeah, I mean, again, I feel bad because, you know, I'm living in a home probably that was paid for by Jan Wenner and all that stuff. And he was, like I said, he was always good to me personally, even though we had some pretty intense disagreements and arguments, and there was a lot of yelling that went on. But I think, you know, what happens is that, yeah, you do end up in a bubble, and even people who are who spent their whole lives in the journalism business, and not just in the journalism business, but rock and roll journalism, right? Like you're supposed to be kind of on the edge, right? And Hunter S. Thompson was completely out of control, right? Like his writing was wild and free. That was what was beautiful about it, right? And it took a lot of guts to publish that, right? And to send somebody like that on the campaign trail was a revolutionary idea at the time, you know. But you know, Jan, and this came out in 2016 because he endorsed Hillary. In 2016, and I asked permission to write a counter to that and endorse Bernie. But his whole reasoning was, when we were young and we were supporting McGovern, we were wrong because McGovern was a bad candidate and Nixon got elected. We needed to support somebody else who had a better chance of winning. And so his whole idea of, you know, youthful idealism is nice and all, but it's not pragmatic, right? And this was the place that he had ended up in, and that leads you to other things like, you know, internet censorship.
Yeah.
You know, one of the reasons that one of the first signs that I knew that I wasn't going to have a future at the magazine is when he told me I just flat out shouldn't touch the Russia story anymore. This was in the first year of that scandal, and I had written a bunch of columns saying, you know what, I don't think this is true, and because he perceived that, I think, as helping Donald Trump, you know, he didn't want me writing about him. I ignored him, but you know, you do get in the bubble, and you know, I
think there's also being the boss.
Well, yeah,
being the guy
who
was, and you're insulated in the fact that no one wants to challenge you, and
and look, most of the people who worked at Rolling Stone had kind of a love-hate relationship with Jan. Like he could be tempestuous, and he could be he would go into fits of anger, and things would happen. But on the other hand, like, there was a lot of great journalism that came out of Rolling Stone, and he had, you know, he had a really sort of brilliant sense of how magazines worked and what audiences would like in magazines, and that mechanism in his head functioned extremely well for like 40 years or so.
Yeah.
And so, you know, people respected him as a leader on that front. But you know, over time, the magazine, you know, it started to become, I don't know, it lost its sense of purpose, and yeah, it became something other than what it had been, right? It was a symbol of rebelliousness once, and now it's the opposite.
It is the opposite. Yeah, it was sad to me to have that conversation with him. Like, part of it I really enjoyed, the talking about Hunter and talking about the early days of the magazine, and what it was like to take a chance on a magazine like that in this countercultural environment that they found themselves in. But then, seeing, and you just like, sometimes people just get tired, man. They just get tired and they get old and they kind of like give into narratives.
Yeah.
And then they don't want to explore the subtle nuance of each individual topic because sometimes those are uncomfortable and you have to wrestle with those thoughts. And, sometimes people would rather just medicate themselves and go to sleep.
Yeah, and also you can also get used to not answering difficult questions, which also came through in that interview, I think.
Right. Because you're the boss.
You're the boss,
yeah.
Right? Like you're used to being asked, thrown a whole bunch of softballs, and if you're not in that place, that can be difficult too.
I have a good friend who used to be an executive at Google, and we were at a party. And it was me and my wife and this lady who was one of the big wigs at YouTube. And so she sits down with us and we're talking and she's, asking me about, podcasting and this and that. And we're having this conversation. And I say, how does YouTube decide like what gets marked as bad or, I go, because there's a conversation between Sam Harris and Douglas Murray, two public intellectuals that someone put on their YouTube playlist. Like they didn't even make this conversation. They just like, this is something that I have on my channel, on my playlist. And they got flagged for that. And they got a strike against their channel for that. And I said it to her, I go, why would that be? And she goes, because it was hate speech. And so I go, how did you just say that? I go, how did you just say it was hate speech? I go, do you know the content of the conversation? You're talking about two public intellectuals.
Right.
And you just said it was hate speech. And my wife is like squeezing my knee because she sees I'm getting red. I'm like, you just said it was hate speech. I go, do you understand what they talked about? Do you know what they talked about? Why'd you just say that? But she was just like, it's hate. What they said was hate speech. She just had this arrogance because she was in this position of power where she could say, that's hate speech, that's not hate speech.
Right.
And this was quite a while ago. This was like 2015, 16.
Oh, wow. So it's early.
Yeah, early.
Wow.
But her saying, because it was hate speech, like this look in my, that's what it is. Do you remember that commercial? Where it's like during the drug war, the height of the drug war propaganda, and during the
brain
height,
on drugs thing?
No. The one where there's a man and a younger man, and they're eating dinner, and he's saying, if you buy drugs, you support terrorism. And he's like eating his food at a steakhouse. He goes, what do you mean it supports terrorism? It just does. It just does. You're supporting terrorism. It's like this no-nonsense guy and then this young, goofy guy. Like, what are you saying? I just like to smoke pot. If you buy drugs, you support terrorism. You ever seen that commercial?
No, I don't remember
Let's
it.
play
but
it. Play it from the beginning. Play it from the beginning, because this is...
It's a ploy.
What?
This drug money funds terror. It's a ploy.
Ploy.
A manipulation.
Ploy.
Drug money funds terror. I mean, why should I believe that?
Because it's a fact.
A fact.
F-A-C-T, fact.
So you're saying that I should believe it because it's true. That's your argument.
It is true.
Says who? Says who, motherfucker? And that's me and that lady from YouTube. Because it's hate speech. Because it is hate speech.
Because it's true.
While you're eating salad. What the
She was
fuck?
probably eating too, right?
Yeah, she was eating. Yeah, we were eating. I was so red. I was so hot. I was like, what? And this is before I was even getting censored on YouTube. This was in the early days. Like, back, no one gave a fuck about what I was doing.
Right.
And sitting there with this woman was telling this interesting conversation about the change. This was like when he was doing The Strange Death of Europe, that book, Douglas Murray's book.
Yep.
And, they were having this conversation about what happens when religious ideology starts to change the environment of these European cities. But that fucking attitude that people have, like, because it's true. Because it is true. Like, fucking says who? Like, you can't just say that.
Right.
Like, you tell me how. You tell me how you know. We're going to talk forever, motherfucker. We're going to sit here forever. I'm not going to be done with this dinner. I'm going to put my fork down. You tell me. You fucking tell me how's it funding drugs? Is it funding terrorism? How is that fucking conversation between Douglas Murray and Sam Harris? How's that hate speech?
Right, but they're used to not having to go past that first part of the conversation.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
you know, like that's
If my wife wasn't squeezing my knee, she was like squeezing my knee under the table. she's like, oh Jesus, I know what's happening here.
right,
Yeah.
right. No, but the people, and that was another strange thing about my experience at Rolling Stone. Like I guess it was 2017, 2018, when they first started to really aggressively police the internet. I did a story about how they wiped out a bunch of accounts under the guise. This is after the Alex Jones thing, but the Facebook just sort of zapped a whole bunch of accounts, and some of them were just sort of ordinary, hardworking people who had built up these independent media channels, and the company just sent them notices: you are coordinated inauthentic activity, and your page is down. This is after they'd spent tens of thousands of dollars on Facebook ads to build up their pages and everything. They weren't bots; they were real people. And not only could I not convince other people in the business that it was a significant story that these companies were now doing this, but within Rolling Stone, the story, the headline had to be refashioned. If you look at it now, the story is called "Who Will Fix Facebook," because they wanted to imply that the problem was that Facebook was out of control and needed to be policed more, right? And sort of my headline that I submitted was very different. It was something like, censorship on Facebook is out of control or whatever it is, right? But this belief that the censorship is a good thing, that we need more of it, I just think it became an upper class kind of New York, Washington, just cocktail party belief, right? I mean, it was something you started to hear from people right around the time that Trump got elected. Oh, we just need more of that. We have to do something to reckon with all those people or whatever it is, and they haven't let go of it. I don't think, have they?
I don't know. Have they?
Yeah, I think they're still in that place for the most part. This move toward that World Economic Forum version of a more regulated internet. I think we're only in the beginning stages of that. I think they're going to make many steps, that are going to be much more significant in the future to try to prevent, things like your show from breaking out, right? Like they're not going to want that in the future.
Well, how does the World Economic Forum actually wield influence? Like what works there? How does it work? One thing we know about this year's event is we know two things. One, that hookers are going there in droves. There was an article about the increase in the population of prostitutes, which makes sense.
Yeah, it makes
the
a
other
lot of sense.
when the boys are away. And then the other thing was that Klaus Schwab and George Soros decided to opt out this year. Which is interesting.
That is interesting.
Maybe it's getting too hot. Because it used to be a thing that really didn't get much public attention. They could go there and they could all have these meetings and decide the fate of the world and try to sort of move the world in general directions. And then there was also Michael Schellenberger released a bunch of stuff this week showing that they lie about things that they've said that have become very problematic. One of them was, you will own nothing, you'll be happy. And they said, no. That was all just internet conspiracy theories. It's not true, but it is true. And then there was websites. They had a whole advertising campaign based on this. They did that. They said that. They absolutely put it up. They really did.
Or I think another one was eating bugs, right?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't have a problem with eating bugs. I do have a problem with people trying to say what is good and is not good for the world when I know that if you say it is good, it's going to benefit enormous groups economically, and it's going to lock other people out. And I think that's what they're doing with things like plant-based meat. When all those people were saying plant-based meat is the future, like, the fuck it is. It's really bad for you. It's really bad for you. Not only that, it's monocrop agriculture, which is terrible for the land. It's terrible for living creatures. This idea, if one life equals one life, you're way better off buying cows and eating cows than you are buying corn. Because in order to grow a stalk of corn, a lot of shit has to die. And if you're using monocrop agriculture and using industrialized farming methods, and you're controlling enormous swaths of land with only one crop, that is totally unnatural, doesn't exist anywhere in nature. And in order to do that, you have to poison everything else. You have to kill all the animals. You have to poison the land. You have to strip the topsoil. You have to use industrialized fertilizer. You can't grow things that way normally. That's why there's only, using these industrialized methods, there's only like 60 more crop circles that they can do, or crop cycles they can do. Like, there's only a certain amount of topsoil that's even left that's viable to grow food on, because they don't use regenerative agriculture anymore.
Huh.
The people that like White Oak Pastures and Polyface Farms, like Joel Salatin and Will Harris, these like grizzled old farmers who use these regenerative methods that are very like almost boutique, they're very rare now. But they're more popular than ever because people are aware of them. But most of the stuff that you buy is using industrialized fertilizer. What these people are doing is they're letting cows graze. They take the manure. They use the manure as fertilizer. Chickens roam the land. Chickens peck the bugs and eat the stuff. Pigs roam, and then they cycle where these animals are. So what they're essentially doing is they're recreating nature in a contained environment, and that is actually carbon neutral. It actually sequesters carbon in the soil in a lot of cases. But if you want to buy plant-based food and plant-based meat, you're not getting that.
Right.
You're supporting monocrop agriculture, industrialized farming, and you're supporting very unhealthy food.
And the idea of a small group of people who meet in a ski resort town in Switzerland making the decisions about this for people all around the world.
And they're doing it on private jets.
He was there, and I think he was never supposed to be there. Bill Gates and Klaus Schwab was there.
It says Post falsely claimed Bill Gates withdrew from Davos Forum. Yeah, but Klaus Schwab did withdraw.
I think he was there, though.
Well, he said he couldn't make it. It was a public release, and George Soros also said he couldn't make it.
Okay.
I mean, you could Google that.
I was looking. I thought I saw a video of him talking.
Well, he's definitely talked at it before. It could be from another time. Klaus Schwab. Mm-hmm. I think there was a thing that said that due to a scheduling conflict, he couldn't make it.
I thought so too. I remember reading that too, but now I'm Googling it, and it's like it doesn't come up. Like, I'm looking for did Klaus Schwab leave Davos? Is he not there? And I don't get a report.
Did you Google, did Klaus Schwab opt out of the World Economic Forum this year?
Klaus Schwab.
Who organized this thing? That's what's super bizarre. Like, that these billionaires and then Justin Trudeau, and then they all fly there.
This is what happens when I Google that.
Did Klaus Schwab, he spelled Schwab wrong, but it's okay, opt out. Is that how you spell his name?
It doesn't. It gives you the right answer. It
Okay.
knows what you're looking for.
Did Klaus Schwab, what does it say?
See, it doesn't say that he's not there. It just sort of seems like he's there. I don't know. It was confusing. That's why I was trying to just clarifying.
Okay.
I mean, it's just part of this whole infrastructure with Aspen Institute, World Economic Forum. Like,
what kind of influence do they actually have? Like, why and how do they? When we have young global leaders, when he talks about like Trudeau being one of our young global leaders, and this is what they do. They get their young global leaders that are indoctrinated into the World Economic Forum's ideas, and they implement them in politics.
Yeah, it's the same thing as Justin Timberlake being a Mouseketeer, and then later on he gets to have a real career in entertainment. I mean, it's right. It's the same. It's the same exact concept. They bring people along. There's a feeder system for how people become powerful politicians. We've seen how it works. You can if you want to be a financial regulatory official, you run a desk at Goldman Sachs for a few years, and next thing you know, you'll be running the World Bank and in Canada, or running the you'll be the chief economist of the World Bank, or you'll be the chief economist of the ECB or the Bank of Canada, or whatever it is. There's just all these places where politicians come from. You do a tour in the military, maybe even in the CIA. Maybe you work for a consulting firm like McKinsey. You do a little time, working for, this or that politician as an aide, and then, they raise some money for you to become a candidate in Congress, and next thing you know, you're running for president. Like they know how they do these things, right? Like the politicians don't come from too many places, right? And
right.
Especially in America, we've got a pretty stable system of how that works. But the global thing freaks me out a little bit. Like this idea that leaders from all over these countries are getting together and setting an agenda that may be completely contrary to what people in the individual nations might want. That's upsetting. Like that seems totally anti-democratic and disturbing. And I don't know. I have a lot of fears about that. So
yeah, as do I. And this is a fairly new thing in terms of like the public zeitgeist. Like people didn't know about the World Economic Forum 6-7 years ago. At least most people didn't. They didn't hear about it. They didn't hear about Klaus Schwab and you will own nothing and you will be happy. When you hear him say stuff like that and hear them talk about young global leaders, you're like, what is happening here? Like you seem like a bad guy in a science fiction movie. Like he wears that crazy outfit that I show you, the picture we have in the bathroom.
Yeah.
Like, could you be any more obvious that you're fucking insane? Like you're an insane, megalomaniacal dictator type character who wants to run the world, and you're literally dressing like a Star Wars character.
Yeah, there's got to be some weird sexual fetishism thing going on there.
Pull that
too.
picture up, Jamie. You know that nutty picture. That picture is so every time I go to take a leak, I look at that picture. That's why it's there. Because I'm like, what kind of freak shit is that guy into when no one's around? Because if you're dressing like that publicly and you're telling people they're going to eat bugs and that you're going to own nothing and everyone and then when people catch you on it, you go, those are conspiracy theories. We have nothing to say to those things. Like, look at that fucking outfit. He looks like a space druid.
That's awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
The fact that he chose to leave his house dressed like that, like, yes, I will adjust the peons. All the public needs to know that we are in control. Look at this guy, like that weird star on the right one and whatever the fuck it says on the left one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But on his vest, like, what is that thing on his vest? Is that the same thing? What is that symbol?
It looks like a sun.
Right, but what does it stand for?
I could look that up. There's
Fucking-
also a goat with a cross.
Oh, a fucking goat with a cross in
It's
its
a bull.
head.
It's a bull, I think.
Whatever it is, a bull. Jesus Christ, you fucking psychos.
Science, ingenuity, truth, I think is what that says.
I almost wish that I didn't have this podcast and I could just go and hang out with those people.
But doesn't that look like the outfit?
That's not him.
Wow, look at that
I
one.
don't think that's him.
No. Well, how about The Great Reset? He wrote a book called The Great Reset, and then they denied that The Great Reset is the thing they're working towards. Like, bro, you wrote a book.
Right, yeah.
You wrote a book.
Yeah.
It's called The Great Reset. This is not like the fucking, like the Steele dossier. Like, Trump didn't write a book called The Steele dossier and say, I never peed on anybody. Like, this is what you're doing.
Right. Or isn't New World Order another term that they...
Yes.
Right, you see it on the background of, some of their events, but...
How do they have influence, though? Like, other than, like, are they just financing politicians? And so they have this meeting where they get together and they say, oh, this is what we want you to do. And it's just understood that if you follow those people and you do that, you'll have some sort of a career, like almost like a workshopping thing, like a conference for people to get together that are fucking aluminum siding salesmen. And, like, they find out what's the new tech and what's the latest stuff and sales techniques.
I assume it just works the same way that think tanks work in the United States, right? Like if you
Here it goes. It was founded on the 24th of January 1971 by German engineer and economist Klaus Schwab. Jesus, he founded that in 71. The foundation, which is mostly funded by its 1,000 member companies, typically global enterprises with more than $5 billion US in turnover, as well as public subsidies. I'd like to find out what those subsidies are. Views its own mission as improving the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. Boy, does that sound gross.
Yeah.
The WF is mostly known for its annual meetings at the end of January in Davos, a mountain resort in the eastern Alps of Switzerland. The meeting brings together some 3,000 paying members and selected participants, among whom are investors, business leaders, political leaders, economists, celebrities, and journalists, up to 5 days to discuss global issues across 500 sessions. There was some guy who was trying to interview someone from MSNBC. And, he was like some independent journalist guy, and he was trying to talk to this guy on the street.
Yeah.
And the guy from MSNBC said something along the lines of someone should knock that fucking guy out. Like, threatened this guy for asking him questions about speaking truth to power.
That's okay.
Okay, thank you. Where are you from?
Rebel News.
Yes, but what is your interest? What is your
What do you
question?
mean? I'm covering the news. I'm doing what your bosses are supposed to be doing.
Okay.
Why did you get so upset? What's he so scared about?
No, I'm not scared.
Not you, your boss. He seemed really scared. He ran in there and called you out.
No, it's just we have to know who is out here. And
My name's Avi Yamini.
Yes.
I work for Rebel News.
Yes.
We're reporters. We do what CNBC is supposed to be doing, and he seemed a bit upset that we were asking some questions in the public area outside.
Yeah, if you're here, it's public area. It's no worries. That's private area from here on. So you're doing fine. Wish you a very nice day.
You too.
So, like, I think he keeps going, because this is where they
What
threaten to punch
CNBC
him
is
out.
doing
Yeah.
here? I can't ask you.
No, you can't.
Don't
I'm
you-
rather you didn't put a camera in my face. Thank you.
Really? But you're here as an invited guest and you're an editor for CNBC. Don't you think that's a bit of a conflict of interest?
I'd like you to go away. I haven't agreed to an interview. If you're doorstepping me, like, go away. Seriously, take my camera.
Don't touch the mic.
Get away from me, brother.
You're meant to speak. You're meant to be speaking truth to power. Are you here just to take your marching orders? Is that what you're here for?
Do you want to go away?
Not really. I'm here to do what you should be doing.
Yeah. Please take this out of my mouth. I'm gonna have you escorted off with security.
All right.
I like how he's
Do
got
that.
the
There
cigarette.
you go.
Yeah. So he goes inside. Keep it going, because he goes inside, and that's when he says someone should knock this fucking guy out.
Escort me.
I want to hear what he actually says. I'm
No, I'm doing-
paraphrasing.
And now he's calling security to escort me off the premises. Well,
Send this gentleman in.
what's the problem?
You're my problem. You've been very rude to me this morning. You haven't asked me anything, so I'd like you to take the camera off me.
I've literally asked you questions politely, which should be your
That guy
job.
just littered, you fucking
That's
piece of
your
shit.
job, sir. I'm doing your job. I'm just not getting paid for by Klaus Schwab. You were inside as he walked in, a bit upset. What did you hear him say?
I heard him say, I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't have the exact thing, but he came in sounding quite angry, saying, I'm going to punch him out. Paraphrasing there, he's knocked out, punched out, but, he wanted to hit you.
Yeah, and there's
know what he
an
said.
actual recording of it.
Oh, okay.
But whatever. We get it. We get it. Is that same guy the guy that got set up by Jim Jeffries' show back in the day?
The guy that he was talking to, the CNBC guy?
Avi Yemeni.
I'll check.
Please check. I think he is. I think he's a guy that got set up and they took a bunch of his words out of context and tried to pretend that he was saying something horrible and he wasn't. And he had a recording of the entire event because he recorded on his cell phone knowing that they were going to set him up. If it's not that guy, we have to edit this part out. Activist exposes Jim Jeffries' deceptive tactics. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Yeah.
I actually have a story that's very similar to that.
Really?
One of the things I wanted to talk about.
Sorry.
Oop.
Go ahead.
No, that was
No, yeah,
just
yeah.
autoplay.
So the first time I got sent to cover the presidential campaign for Rolling Stone. It was in 2004, and I was on the plane with Kerry, and it's teeming with journalists, obviously. And there was a story that came out. Probably everybody's forgotten it, but there was a story that turned out to be fake that Matt Drudge put out about. Well, maybe it wasn't fake, but it was at least not proved. That Kerry had a secret mistress in Africa, right? And if you look this up, you'll find stories about it that were out there. And Kerry came out in the morning, and all the journalists were sort of peppering him with questions about the mistress. And I don't care about John Kerry, but I thought it was odd that they went straight from reading something where there's no evidence to posing this question and having it on camera, right? So I asked some of the journalists, and I was kind of the new kid. I said, why were you doing that? Like on the basis of what were you asking that question? And the minute they perceived that I was actually trying to ask another journalist a question, like for a story, this one guy, he sort of steps in front of all the other ones and he says, dude, this is a fucking no-fly zone, right? Like, in other words, we don't cover each other in here, right? Like that was the message. And like from that point forward, I was always in the back of the plane, like with the tech people, whenever I covered presidential politics, because the press does not like it. Even though it is a crucial part of the story, it denies that it has that role, and it insists on not being covered. And you can see how nervous these guys get when a camera's on them. Like, oh my, you're putting a camera on me? Like,
when I Google John Kerry's secret mistress Africa, it brings me down a John Edwards hole, which is fucking weird.
That is bizarre.
But when you put it into Bing, I get a story.
Oh, so Microsoft won't censor it, but Google will.
Like, there's a couple stories about that. Like John Kerry stuff comes up when I look at that.
Different John Kerry stuff?
Yeah. Where it doesn't redirect to John Edwards,
So that's even even weirder, right? Like you're getting different versions of reality based on what search engine you're using?
You most certainly do. If you use DuckDuckGo, you just get what's out there. And when you use Google, you get really, like, I noticed that during the pandemic. There was a doctor that had a heart attack immediately after taking his second shot of, I think it was Moderna. And so I was like, what is that about? And this was like very early on. And I Googled it. I could not find it. I could not find the story. And then I went to DuckDuckGo immediately. And I was like, whoa, this is wild. Like, they're hiding this story.
Right.
So they would hide certain stories because they thought that they would increase vaccine hesitancy. Yeah.
Yeah. See, it's
terrifying.
Right.
You're carrying water for the pharmaceutical companies, which is really spooky. Because, I mean, you want to talk about the people that have had, like, the biggest criminal fines in U.S. history. And they've been lying about the adverse effects of their medications forever.
Right.
Withholding information in order to gain a profit. And then you're hiding stories.
Right.
That may implicate them in someone's death. It might be somehow or another involved. Like, we don't know. And you're just hiding it? Why are you hiding that story? I Googled Florida doctor adverse reaction vaccine heart attack instantly on DuckDuckGo. I get all these articles about this guy that died. Couldn't find shit on Google.
Wow. Well, I mean, look, they've gotten very sophisticated in their ability to suppress certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is where you see the influence of how money works with the content suppression thing. I mean, like, you take something like the Digital Forensic Research Lab for the Atlantic Council. It's one of the things that these platforms use to decide whether or not a news story is true. But if you look at where they get their money, it's the German Marshall Fund, which is a mishmash of sort of sovereign wealth funds and Fortune 500 companies. So it's you're paying for the fact check essentially, right? Like that's how all of these sites that are allegedly deciding what's true and what's not, they're all influenced, and that's another thing that drives me crazy is this persistent belief that people have that you can objectively decide what is true and what is not somehow. It doesn't work like that. The only way it works is you either over time you come to trust some stations over others because they have a record of being more right about something. Like that's the only way it works.
Yeah, independent fact checkers. When the independent fact checkers review certain things, and you find them on social media where they have like a little warning or a little notification afterwards, and you actually go down the rabbit hole and say, well, what have you done? Like, what is a lot of it is subjective. They've just decided that this is not true, or decided this is partially true.
Or it's missing context. That's their favorite thing.
Yeah, missing context is great.
Missing context, right? Like, it's true, but here are 8 reasons why you should think otherwise. Like, like that's not our job. And by the way, reporting by itself is fact checking. That's the whole point of it. Like, we don't need a separate thing called fact checking. Yeah. Right, to go with report. That whole phenomenon drives me nuts. But.
It's weird though that we don't have. I mean, it used to be Snopes, and a lot of people used to go to Snopes. But then I read about Snopes, and you find out all the wacky shit about the people that are involved in Snopes, and that the guy who was the head of it is like very heavily left leaning, and then he married a prostitute, and like. All kinds of wild shit. It's like Snopes is not like some like rock solid, independent, purely objective organization that is dedicated to the dissemination of truthful information. Like, no, they're like fucking heavily left leaning.
Right.
And in subjective circumstances, when it's subjective whether or not this is real or not real or lacking context or whatever, like they can paint a narrative that it at least is biased.
I mean. Every outlet is subjective, but that's why you have to allow them all.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, we're grown-ups. Let's read all the stuff, and then we'll decide. Yeah. But they don't want to do it that way. They want to have a hierarchical system that decides what's more like you talk about Google's search engine. Like they had a thing called Project Owl that they implemented in. I think it was 2017, where they changed their way of measuring what stories come up first, and they shifted to a model that emphasized what they called authority. And when I asked them what that meant, they told me the analogy they gave was think about if you search for baseball previously, you might have gotten your local Little League. Now you're going to get MLB.com. Right, so whatever we consider the more authoritative source, and that's based on surveys of people, what people think is authoritative, that's what's going to come up first. So instead of, if you search for, let's just say, Trotskyism, instead of getting the world's leading Trotskyist website, right, which is the World Socialist website, you will get a New York Times story about Trotskyism instead, right? Because they want to push you towards the authoritative source,
right?
But that's subjective, right? And again, it's hierarchical, and it's away from the spirit of how we would like to ingest information, which is just let's see all of it and make our own decision.
And if you did come up with your own search engine or your own fact-checking organization that decided what's true or is not true, the real fear would be that would eventually get compromised, and that someone would come along and they'd pay for your advertising and do this and do that, and then slowly but surely get their hooks into you.
Which is what they've done with Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Wikipedia was originally like this open source, kind of free thing. Now, I'm discovering this now with the Twitter files. You can't get Twitter files information into Wikipedia because they will not recognize what they call I forget the term they use. It's not an authoritative source. It's like a recognized source or something like that. So as long as the big newspapers don't cover it, they don't have a site that allows them to put it into Wikipedia, that allows the algorithm to put it in.
Has no mainstream media source covered the Twitter files?
Not really. No, they've done hit pieces on me and on Elon and on Barry, but they haven't covered the stuff in the stories,
Which is wild.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know,
That is wild.
No matter what you think about me or Elon Musk or whatever, like the stuff in the files is clearly newsworthy. I mean, if you didn't know, I mean, the idea that the FBI and the Homeland Security having a system of sending moderation requests to every internet platform in the country. The idea that that's not a news story is insane to me. Like I can't even process that. But you have to make a conscious decision to not do that story, which is what they've done. So
which is really indicting.
Yeah, and of course, they've done a gazillion stories about how I've become this evil sellout right wing character. The Washington Post actually humorously described me as a conservative journalist, and they scrubbed it within a day because there was so much blowback on Twitter. But I don't care about that so much because I'm used to it by now. But it's a message that's sent to other journalists, which is if you step outside the club, we're just gonna dump buckets of shit on you all day long, and that's gonna be your life forever, right? Like you're just and you have to get used to that, and so that's a new part of the business. Like once when you broke a big story, you got like plaudits from your peers, and now it's a very different thing, but you still got to do it. Definitely.
You still got to do it, but more importantly, when they continue to do that and call someone like you a right-wing journalist or call someone a far-right this or an alt-right that, and then people objectively know that that's not true, then it undermines all of their credibility and slowly but surely dissolves all confidence that people have in every other story they come out with. And that's what we're seeing. That's why what New York Times is today, to the generation that's coming up today, I used to deliver the New York Times just because it was the New York Times. It wasn't even profitable for me. I thought it was cool that I was delivering the New York Times because I delivered the Boston Globe and I delivered the Boston Herald, and I got a route for the Times.
That's awesome.
And the Times is a pain in the ass because I had to drive, like, if I was doing the Boston Globe, which was the most popular paper.
Wait, what town were you in?
Boston.
Newton.
Okay. Newton.
Newton.
So I would get up every morning. I'd work 365 days a year. You have to deliver every day if you have a paper route.
I used to have a paper route in Massachusetts too.
So I would get up and I would go to the depot. I'd pick up my Heralds. I'd pick up my Globes at a different place. And then I'd go and get my New York Times at a different place. And the New York Times was a nightmare because, like, if I was going to deliver to the Boston Globe, if I'm on one street, I might have 10 houses on the street. But the fucking Times, I might have one and then might have to go a mile to my next house.
And you gotta carry the bag the whole way, right?
And I would try to coordinate my routes, right? So I would have a route that was all the Globes, and then I have a route that was the Heralds, and then I would have the Times. And the Times was a nightmare. But I delivered the Times just because it was the New York Times.
Because you thought it was cool.
It was cool.
Yeah.
They had a blue plastic bag. Everyone else had a white one. And, it's like if that guy got the Times delivered, that's a smart dude. That's a guy who's reading the New York Times. And I read the New York Times. So I was like, I'm going to deliver the Times. Like I felt like I was a cooler person for delivering the New York Times. That does not exist with 21-year-old people of today.
No.
When I was 21, that was like, I had aspired to be a more intelligent, more well-read person, and that to me was a symbol of that. And I would get a free copy of it every day, and I would read it after I was done working. That doesn't exist anymore. Nobody gives a fuck about the New York Times, and they think about them as like some left-wing Tumblr blog.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's like,
it's not even like the establishment paper.
No.
It's just like you say, it's like a Facebook group for a small group of kind of wealthy people who all went to the same schools. I don't know. It's dull and uninformative at the same time.
Ideologically driven beyond belief. Like
Yeah.
you 100% for sure are not getting an objective analysis of whatever story it is. You're getting it from a very particular slant, one way or the other. And that's not sustainable. It's not sustainable with this new group of people that are coming up that have the internet. These kids have access to all these independent people talking about things, whether they're doing it on YouTube or podcasts or Substack or whatever it is. They get access to independent people that are talking about real information. And every time the New York Times prints bullshit, or every time the Washington Post prints bullshit, it further undermines their credibility and further slides them down this inevitable road that they're on.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it's a road to obscurity. Nobody's going to care anymore. It's like you're seeing it take place at CNN. You're seeing it take place with all these cable news networks. You're seeing it take place with late night television. Nobody gives a fuck about it anymore.
I know.
And it's slowly, you have a bad business model and you're not adapting.
Yeah. Yeah. The creativity's gone for late night comedy, right? Like that's not really a thing anymore.
You got Jimmy Fallon doing a song about different variants of COVID.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
Yeah. Could we see it though?
Have you seen it?
I
It's
saw
so
the
bizarre.
anti-vax Barbie one, which was amazing.
I didn't see that one. But this one is so strange. It's like, what did they drug him up with to get him to agree to do this? Like, I want to be in the meet. I want to be a fly on the wall in that meeting where they go, okay, Jimmy, this is what we're going to do. You're going to be singing about all the different variants. And it's like, here's a song. And you're going to be dancing and saying, he's like, okay.
Might be the best. It's XBB.1.5. Another brand of COVID-19 has arrived. It's a new strain, but it isn't the same. Sounds more like Elon Musk's his name. It's XBB.1.5, not UB40 who sings red wine. Put on your mask when you're inside a facility. It could be a robot from a Star Wars trilogy. It's
What?
God.
What is happening there?
So that's supposed to be, is that Devo that he's?
No.
Love Shack.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. It's B-52s, right?
No. Who's Love Shack? Was it B-52s?
That sounds right.
The Love Shack.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a B-52s, right? Yeah. That's it, right? Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Of course, yes.
Oh, God.
But that's just like straight up.
What is that? It's insanity. Like, look at his little dance. Like, there's no enthusiasm in his face. It's like he's drugged.
I mean, it kind of reminds you of like a USO thing, right?
I don't know what it reminds me of. It reminds me of madness. It's just pure madness. Like that's not what he got into show business. Like what someone talked him into doing that. Like that's not his idea. Somebody had a meeting. I don't think it's his idea.
30 million subscribers to that video did not do very well.
104,000 views, and 4,000 of them are us.
I know we played it twice or three times now.
That's really.
And nobody gives a fuck about that. That's nonsense. How do they have that many subscribers too? They probably buy them. That's the problem too. Is like you're finding out how many people buy social media followers.
Right.
Yeah, and that people were selling blue check marks at Twitter. That's the other weird thing, where they were selling verified accounts. So like you could pay someone and they would get you verified. People were spending like $5,000-$10,000.
How little of a life do you have for that to matter that much to you?
I guess if you're like an independent journalist or you're some sort of a YouTuber that's trying, like if you have that check next to your name,
I guess
that
so.
gives you more credibility. I love in the fact they were removing check marks. Like, we're going to take away your
yeah, they did that
verification.
to Thomas Chatterton Williams. Remember that after the Harper's letter?
No. What was that about?
We still don't know. They just took his check mark away. He was the guy who organized the Harper's letter, the pro free speech declaration.
No, I'm not aware of that.
So
Or I forgot about it.
it was like a petition where he organized a bunch of high-profile people basically to say that like canceling is bad and we should all respect each other's opinions and support academic freedom and that sort of thing. So we got people like Salman Rushdie and Noam Chomsky to sign onto it, but then there was also Barry Weiss and J.K. Rowling were on the list, and it soon became a thing in the media that to be on the Harper's letter was like it was like membership in a hate society, and he was just absolutely dumped upon. He was denounced as a racist even though he's black, and he got his check taken away. I
actually don't know if he had it. He was trying to get verified. It seems like
I'm
reading this article about it right now, and he's saying like he tried to get verified here for the second time. Maybe he got it taken away, and
I think he got it taken away because he had it at one point.
It says denied verification. Did he definitely have it at one point in time?
I'm just saying I don't know that that's what this story sounds like it was. It sounds like he was trying to get it again.
That is so amazing. I mean, this brings me back to that conversation I had with that YouTube lady who said it's hate speech.
Right.
It is so amazing that you would say that freedom of speech and to be able to talk about things openly is somehow hate speech.
Yeah, no, the Harper's letter thing was nuts because if you actually read the Harper's letter, it's so anodyne. It barely says anything at all. It's very kumbaya. It's just like, hey, let's all get along. Like, you know, let's not get people fired for saying harmless things, that kind of thing.
Crazy talk.
Right, yeah.
Outright crazy talk.
Yeah, and it became a huge thing. I mean, it changed media. Like, it ended up it being one of the reasons that Matt Iglesias left Vox, which he co-founded, because he signed the letter and there was somebody on staff who felt threatened by that. And it was a whole kerfuffle within the media industry, which is, endlessly navel-gazing anyway. But yeah, no, you can become the subject of one of those ridiculous villain for the day, campaigns really, really easily now.
Do you think that is changing because now people aren't scared to speak their mind on Twitter? Like, you're seeing so much pushback when someone types something on Twitter now and it's ridiculous. Now people aren't scared to go in after it. They're not worried about losing their account, which they were before. Which is, I think, one of the more interesting things about Elon Musk buying Twitter is that you are seeing a much more vigorous debate. You're seeing a lot more trolling. You're seeing a lot more people that are posting like ridiculous GIFs, like to make fun of people after they say something stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that's one of the results, right? Because the old Twitter was, was just a grindstone of official messaging where if you said like a thing like a micrometer outside whatever the narrative was, you could expect to just be descended upon by all these people, and nobody, you just ended up not wanting to bother, right?
Yeah.
So you wouldn't say anything, but I hope people are feeling encouraged to say more now, but as my experience shows, you can still end up getting lots and lots of shit in the media for doing the wrong thing. So
yes,
and that can last quite a long time.
But I mean, how much influence does that media really have anymore? I mean, and just because something's written down, how much different is it than people just having a conversation and putting that conversation on YouTube? Like the actual idea that someone writing an article about someone, like a hit piece on you, for instance, that actually has an impact anymore. It's really no different than two people on some sort of a progressive podcast talking about, Matt Taibbi's now a right-winger now. It's like crazy. Like, what happened to him? He used to be the guy for the Rolling Stone. He was so progressive, and now he's he used to go after, Wall Street. And now Like,
Right.
It's not, those articles don't work.
No, they don't work,
and people aren't reading them.
Yeah, and look, I mean, you know this too, right? Because when there was that whole movement to try to get Bernie Sanders to denounce you and everything like that, like after you endorsed him, if you're not afraid of whatever the ultimate consequence is, like you learn that these cancellation episodes are survivable. Once that happens, you lose your fear of it pretty quickly, and I think
they embolden people after they've survived it. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
That now you realize that, oh, this is okay. Like I could do this.
Yeah.
Not only that, like when all the things was happening with Spotify with me, I gained 2 million subscribers in a month.
Right.
So it worked the opposite way. Like Patrick Bet-David did a whole thing on it. He said, he goes, in my estimation, the amount of publicity they gave him was worth about $300 million.
That's great.
Yeah, but that's the new world.
Right.
Whereas using those methods before we had independent journalism, before we had the internet, before we had YouTube and all these different ways that you could just get a message out, it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
If they all came at you in targeted fashion like they did, you're fucked. Like they were going to change the narrative of you, and it changed the narrative already with some people. Some people still believe certain things about me because they read it on CNN or they heard it on CNN.
Sure.
There's no way you can get around that. But for most people that are actually paying attention, all it does is undermine the credibility of those sources. Anybody who's calling you a right-wing journalist, like anybody who knows you, knows that's straight horseshit.
Right.
So like the amount of damage they're doing to their own reputation by printing that, the individual author and the publication itself, the publication should be terrified of anybody that would be so willing to undermine their credibility by calling you a right-wing journalist for just one point about one thing that they disagree with you on. So they're going to make this blanket statement that's so patently untrue and so obviously researchable.
Right.
You should, if that was my news organization, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing? Do you know what damage you're going to do by calling him a right-wing journalist? Now, what 100,000 people that are going to read this, you got 50,000 people that now think you're capable of being full of shit.
Right. And they're probably going to go over to Substack or they're going to go to Spotify or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, like that's, they haven't figured that out yet. But there's still the collateral damage of, they're able to say nasty things about you that people hear, which is not fun.
Yeah.
But you're right. There was a moment before independent media where if they all decided to do it, you were done. I mean, I remember the first time that I knew there was a story coming out about me and my past with the exile, and I knew I was in serious trouble, and like. At the time, there was no alternative. Like, if the club kicked you out, there was nowhere else to go in journalism, or in any kind of media job. And but that's different. That's no longer the case. They don't have that absolute power anymore.
They have less power than the independents, which is nuts, and it happened so quickly.
Right.
I mean, if you look at like what Crystal and Sagar have done. And that in Breaking Points is fucking gigantic now.
Absolutely.
And I remember when they weren't independent, they were thinking about going independent. And I was like, I'll help you. Mm-hmm. I'm like, we can do this. You guys are fantastic. You're honest. You talk about things. I mean, I might not agree with you, but you're talking about things based on your actual interpretation of what's going on and your opinions on these things. That's what people want.
Yeah, and they had a concept that at the time was forbidden, which was people on the opposite end of the political spectrum trying to have a civilized conversation.
Yeah. Remember when they used to have a show like that on Fox, Hannity and Combs?
Right.
Remember that?
But that was sort of like pro wrestling. Like Combs' job was to get pinned.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't a real fight.
Yeah. Oh, he tapped out quick too.
Yeah.
He always got pinned. But that's what the show was. It was like, we got a guy from the left, we got a guy from the right. And, Hannity went on to become a big star. And where did Combs go? He quit. Probably got brain damage from being pinned so many times.
That would be an interesting. Whatever happened to Alan Combs? That would be an interesting question to.
Does he have a podcast or anything? Where is that guy? But he was just so wishy-washy. He was like the perfect caricature of a left-wing guy confronted by a strong right-wing pro-America. Sean Hannity.
Right.
I'm friends with Trump.
Yeah, no, I remember I knew a guy named Jeff Cohen who was briefly on Crossfire. He played the from the left person, and he told me afterwards that the role of the liberal in that show was to be somebody who couldn't punch back. Right? They were trying not so much to talk about the politics, but to highlight the kind of weeniness of that character, right?
Yeah.
And so because he didn't go along with it, so he didn't last terribly long in that role. But that's the kind of person they wanted. They wanted somebody who was kind of snivelly, retreating, right? And the conservative was always like this attacking, aggressive, sort of
no nonsense,
like sort of cackling, confident character. It made for good TV, but as politics, it was totally nuts.
What Crystal and Saga are doing is like the better version of that.
Right,
an honest version of that.
An honest version.
And they really are friends. They like each other. He is on the right, she is on the left. And they disagree on things, but it works.
Right.
It really works.
Right. And why is that forbidden? Well, that's a really interesting question, right?
Yeah.
Like, why do people not want us to know that it's possible for people on the right and the left to talk in a civilized way and disagree on some things, but still get along? Why doesn't anybody want us to know that? Like that, I think that's a question that's worth exploring. Like, why does CBS not want us to know that? Why does Fox, for that matter, not want us to know that?
Well,
right?
I think the fear is that if you do allow that, like say if you're NBC or CNBC, and you allow this right-left thing to happen on your show, what if the person on the right makes a really good point?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what if they swing people more towards the right? Like, what if this person's on the air multiple times and they're really compelling, and maybe they're better at arguing, or maybe they're more reasonable, or maybe they're more objective, or maybe they're more calm. Maybe they're whatever about them is more attractive than the person who's on the left. Now all of a sudden you got a problem, because now you have people that are tuning in specifically for this one woman or one man who is right-leaning on a network that has a progressive agenda. You have a left-wing agenda.
Right.
And you're funded by these left-wing super PACs and left-wing special interest groups and left-wing advertising. And you're like, hey, what is this fucking abortion is murder argument that this guy just made reasonably? What is this, term limits argument that this person made? What is this argument this person made about getting money out of politics? Are you fucking crazy?
Right.
Get that off of there.
Yeah, and that's too bad, because what ends up happening is we end up in this sort of system of bifurcated media where everybody's in armed camps, like they don't talk to one another, because there's no model for that in American society. We don't have a place where we can see people of differing political opinions getting along with one another and acting like civilized human beings. Like it doesn't really exist in like establishment culture, establishment media, but people. That's why people are rejecting it, because they know, like they're picking up their kids at school and talking to their neighbors who they know have totally different politics, and they're getting along fine with them.
Yeah,
right. And so they know it's a lie, and I think it's exhausting. And it's starting to run its course, which is great because I've been waiting for it to run its course for a long time. So it's cool to see.
Well, that's why the World Economic Forum and things along those lines are so fascinating, because you can see that they're the ones that are holding the strings that dangle the narratives in front of the people, that make them attractive. And then you realize, like, well, this is not our real problem. Our problem is not really these narratives. Our problem is who's promoting these narratives and what are they doing while they're promoting that and we're distracted. Well, they're trying to institute a centralized digital currency. They're trying to, give people vaccine passports and some sort of a social credit score system. They're trying to do all sorts of weird methods of control that you're not going to be able to get out of it if you're on the left or if you're on the right. It's going to fuck up everybody's life. And in the meantime, we're arguing about who's right, Greta Thunberg or Andrew Tate.
Right.
Like, it's like these distractions that they put in front of us in the media that get us so hyped up while real shit is going down, that there's real decisions that could be made that might affect you forever. The amount of freedom you have, your ability to travel, your ability, like in China, you say the wrong thing, you can't buy a plane ticket.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go anywhere. Sorry, you're not allowed to buy a home. We saw you tweet about something we found disagreeable.
Well, we have to worry about that now too in the States, though, right? You have to worry if you cross a certain line. Are they going to make it difficult for you to process your credit card transactions?
Will you be unemployable?
Yeah. Like, will you not be able to use PayPal anymore?
Right.
It's stuff like that that kind of creeping dystopian sort of systems of control. It's a big news story, and I think people recognize that it's a serious thing, but we don't see it talked about very much in the corporate press because, again, they're in favor of it, right? So but I'm terrified by all that stuff.
When
right?
PayPal was saying they were going to fine people for misinformation, and I'm like, hey, you guys are just supposed to be a way I can buy things online.
Yeah,
that's it. When you're saying what misinformation on what? On what platform? On any platform? What if I'm at home? Are you listening? Like, how the fuck what are you saying when you're saying misinformation? You're going to fine me? Where's that money going? You're stealing money from me because you don't agree? And what happens if it turns out that misinformation turns out to be true?
Yeah, no, I did a story about, I think it was Mint Press they had funds frozen by PayPal, if I remember correctly, and but the idea that this company, they should be doing one thing. They're trying to make a transaction happen.
Yeah.
Why are they in the truth business?
Exactly.
Like that can only happen if something has gone wildly wrong in society, and somebody feels the need to start using all these different pressure points to control people, like whether or not you can process credit card transactions, or PayPal. If you leave a record of certain kind of web surfing, maybe that's gonna be a negative that will appear somewhere. Like that stuff is all scary. Like it's a serious problem, I think.
Especially when it comes to money. Like you can freeze funds, you can move money around, so you can withdraw money from someone's account because you think, like, what was it, like $2,500 or something around those lines?
Something like that.
Some fine that you would get for misinformation. So if your grandma posts some crazy shit about Trump really winning the election, you have a crazy QAnon grandma, like, they're gonna steal her money?
Yeah.
Like, what are you saying? Like,
right, or the Canadian trucker thing, where the GoFundMe thing, right? Like you raise a whole bunch of money.
Well, not just the GoFundMe thing, about they froze their fucking bank accounts.
Yeah.
And all these people did was protest.
Right, and you don't have to agree with the protest, but you certainly have to. You certainly have to be freaked out by the response to it.
Well, also freaked out that Trudeau is one of the young global leaders at the World Economic Forum, and that Trudeau labeled the truckers as misogynists and racists.
Right.
Like, says who?
Right.
Where are you getting this from? You're not even like pointing to a thing they've said. You're just saying that in this blanket statement to try to diffuse everything they've said and everything they stand for. It's so transparent and such a checkers move in a world of 4D chess.
Yeah, I mean, I always think back to this moment in the 2016 presidential campaign when Bernie was drawing some blood against Hillary by, talking about the gigantic speaking fees she was taking from banks. And they tried to throw a bunch of stuff back at him. None of it worked until one day she came out and she said this thing, if we break up the banks tomorrow, will that end racism? And suddenly this idea sort of popped out into the ether that talking about Hillary Clinton's ties to banks was somehow racist or somehow not progressive, right? And because Sanders, who had grown up his whole life in that ecosystem, there was nothing more terrifying than being accused of racism or misogyny or whatever it was, because they came out with the Bernie bro thing right after that.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a disciplinary method, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like if you go to a certain place, we're going to start dropping these words on you, and those words are not survivable in certain areas.
Right.
So it's very effective, but I think it can't be effective forever, I don't think.
No, I think that effectiveness is waning like a bucket with a hole in the bottom of it. And I don't think there's any escape. I think that the path they've put themselves on, you can't return from it. And I think they're doomed. I really do. I think we're looking at a future where almost all credible media is independent. I really do. I just don't think they're going to make it. I think the only thing that Hollywood will be good for and like these entertainment corporations would be good for is creating things that are exorbitantly expensive, like films with special effects.
Well, they are good at that still.
Yeah, but that's the only thing they'll be able to do.
They make good action movies with superheroes in them, I guess.
I mean, you can make films with iPhones now.
Right.
I mean, a real film. Like, I have a guy that was on the podcast, his name Sonny from Best Ever Food Review. He goes to these countries and samples their exotic foods and travels and sees their cultures and hangs out with these tribal people. Really interesting show on YouTube. He went to Egypt and they confiscated all of their equipment, everything. They took all of their cameras, even though they had visas, they had working visas. He said it's the worst place to film. They're very restrictive. And since then, because he made a video about it, they've actually changed the laws. Point being, he decided to film the entire episode on iPhones, and it looks great.
Right.
It looks amazing because these new iPhones are so fucking good and these new Samsung phones are so good. You don't need really complicated equipment anymore. You can make a really great 4K video with your phone easily.
Right.
You have plenty of storage. It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
And so that's what they did. And now he's looking at it like, man, why are we traveling with all this shit? I could just have my cameramen use iPhones.
Yeah, and you don't need a big institutional backer anymore. So,
No.
and if the only way they can fight back against independent content creators is by calling every single one of them a racist, misogynist, right winger, or whatever. Pretty soon you're going to get to the situation where we're near it now, where all those people like are running into one another, and like every single one of them in a room has already been through episodes like that, right?
Yeah.
It loses its power at that point. Once you've done it to 1 million people or 2 million people, like people stop being shocked by the term.
It's cry wolf.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
yeah, it's a weird time. Really interesting.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun to watch everything get fucking thrown up into the wind and scatter all over the place. It's fun.
It is fun, and I'm actually having fun with the job for the first time in a long time. So I hope you are too.
I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing Substack and being independent and doing things the way you do and doing your podcast? Are you enjoying that?
Yeah. I mean, it's a little different because I used to have the luxury to spend 10 weeks on investigating something, and I don't anymore. I got to crank stuff out, right?
Yeah.
But I would never have been able to do this Twitter files thing, just on a lark without asking lots of people for permission.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
can I ask you this? How does Elon set that up? How did he approach you guys?
Individually, I woke up and I got a text one day, basically, and would you like to do this? And the answer, of course, is yes. And by the way, people talk about this all the time. They want to make a big deal about, because there was an army of people after the first Twitter files who all said the same thing. Like, imagine doing PR for the richest man on earth, right? Like, that was the universal response of all the Mehdi Hassans of the world. Look, the story here is about organizations that are vastly more powerful even than the richest man on earth, right?
Yes.
It's about the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, the DOD, DHS, and it's an opportunity to see how these figures operate in the wild. When you get a source like that, it's not important what their motives are. What's important are what your motives are,
Yeah.
And my motives are I want to know what was going on, and how these organizations operate, and you would never turn down that. No real journalist would turn down that opportunity, And incidentally, I kind of like Elon Musk. I mean, he's got a sense of humor about this that, and I think his ideology in terms of the desire for putting this out there. I mean, who would do this? Who would spend that much money to do this?
His sense of humor is an internet sense of humor.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, he posted that meme of the pregnant man next to the photo of Bill Gates and his pot belly, and he said, in case you want to lose a boner real fast. And he put that on Twitter. I mean, imagine getting dunked on by the richest man in the world on Twitter.
But that's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, could you imagine John Jacob Astor or, one of the Guggenheims doing like a teenage joke in public? And of course not. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's the same phenomenon with Trump. It's like, I couldn't stand his politics, but if you denied that he was funny,
right,
you were lying.
Right.
Like the campaign was funny.
When he called Kim Jong-un Little Rocket Man, I mean, come on. Come on, that shit's hilarious. The guy's got great timing. I mean, he could have been a stand-up. His timing is excellent.
Yeah. If he had, you think he probably would have been good.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably would have said some hilarious shit. Look, if the guy can, and he's good off the cuff. It's not saying he's the best leader we've ever had. Not saying he's a great statesman or a great president or even a good representation of what America's supposed to stand for. Because he's not. And it's a real problem. It's a real problem because there's a lot of people that are conservative-minded, fiscally conservative, hardworking people. They don't like any of his antics, and they're forced to choose between someone they deeply disrespect versus someone who they also deeply disrespect. So, like, what am I doing here?
Right.
How do I go? I'm trying to figure out if I'm conservative anymore. Am I a liberal now? And you don't know because you don't want to align yourself with problematic personalities that also embody some of the economic ideas that you agree with.
Right. But his send up of the whole process, was accurate.
Yeah. The swamp.
I mean, the self seriousness of it.
Yeah.
Right. He was constantly kind of making fun of how seriously people like Hillary Clinton took themselves.
Yeah.
And there was no way it was not going to land. Like, Jeb Bush, saying my mother is the strongest person in the world, and him, saying she should be running, that stuff was just it was designed. It was never not going to work,
right?
And the fact that none of the reporters could see it at the time was just kind of amazing.
Yeah, well, I think people were just so terrified that an asshole like that could actually win and become president. And I remember we did an End of the World podcast from the Comedy Store, where a bunch of comics, we were like watching the election take place and talking shit while it was happening. And then afterwards, it was all over. We were like all stunned, and we went back to the comedian's bar, and I was watching Jake Tapper on TV with this like somber look in his face. Report, well, it really does look like Trump is the president. Like the whole thing was so surreal and wild that, I mean, they just did everything they could to stop that from happening, and it didn't work.
Yeah, no, I mean, and even till the end, I didn't think it was going to happen. But then Florida came in. Do you remember that moment?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, holy shit, this is going to happen. Like,
one of the best things is watching the compilation of the Young Turks watching the election go down, in the beginning being super confident, and then towards the end they're like, fuck! And then there's the same people that have to pretend that Biden's okay. Like, it's amazing how well this country is running while Biden is literally not there.
Oh, yeah. Completely absent. Yeah.
Out of it. It's gone.
I mean, it's Weekend at Bernie's, the whole presidency. And I love the idea that they're going to do Weekend at Bernie's too, which is great.
Now, I wanted to ask you about this, because I had a conspiracy theory. I think when he announced that he was going to run again, and he said that he was going to run again, he talked about running again, then they started finding classified files.
Absolutely. You saw last week Andrew Weissman, who was one of the lead prosecutors in the Mueller investigation, was tweeting all these things about Biden, right? So there's no question that the party and maybe some folks in certain agencies were sending him a message, I think.
Yeah.
You can't prove that, or it's not easily provable, but it certainly
seems so
feels
transparent.
that way. Yeah, it seems very transparent, like a lot of news stories. It seems pretty obvious what's going on, but again, that's what we need a real press for, to get to the bottom of it, so that we can actually talk about it. Yeah. But clearly, right. I mean, it's been 6 years. They didn't go looking for that stuff in the Corvette until there was suddenly a decision that, we don't really want him running again.
But it's just so amazing to watch the hypocrisy play out. Like, do you not remember what you said about the documents at Mar-a-Lago? That wasn't that long ago. And at least in Mar-a-Lago, they were in a safe. Oh, mine was in a locked garage. Your garage was locked? Well, those are impossible to get into.
Yeah, no,
they're way harder to
one's
get
ever
into
done
than
that.
a safe. Was it in the back seat of a classic car? He had him in his fucking Corvette, right? Didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and he made a big deal about that too.
And then they weren't just there; they were in multiple locations.
Right.
So they keep finding these classified documents after he had given Trump so much shit. Like, they wanted to take Trump down for having these classified documents. They were making it like this huge sticking point.
I mean, they're throwing the Espionage Act at him, which is like 5 years account for that, right? I mean.
And meanwhile, Biden has even more.
Right. I know. I mean,
and his own aides turned him in.
It's like an Inspector Clouseau act. The whole thing it's incredible.
What do you think happens in 2024? Like, who do the Democrats pick? Do you think they go with Kamala again, or does she develop a disease? Maybe she's like anxiety, or maybe she's got restless leg syndrome and she can't do it anymore.
Yeah, something unfortunate's going to happen to her. I mean, look, they have to know that she's not viable as a candidate, because they tried twice already to make her the candidate in the last election cycle.
Well, maybe if they wait enough time.
But she
passage of time.
It wasn't that she wasn't, reaching a contender threshold. She was basically flatlining despite massive media attention.
Do you think that
twice
they have
they tried
good
to
speech writers and they get a hold of her and go, listen, this is your last fucking chance at this dance. Okay, we got to do this right. And this is what you got to do. You got to listen to the speech writers. No more ad-libbing. And
no more doing this. She did this a lot.
We're going to write some stuff for you and no more going off script. When she goes off script, she rambles,
Yeah, I think they want Gavin Newsom to be the candidate.
Do you think that's sustainable though? He's
he's totally unlikable.
Yeah,
in the worst way. But I get the sense that that's who they want to be the candidate. I mean, look, they had the guy in the White House when Biden went overseas.
Was he there?
Yeah, he went to the freaking White House. He's filmed going into the White House when Biden takes a trip overseas.
What was he doing there?
I forget. But this was at the time when he was running campaign ads against DeSantis. I mean,
don't you think people go ballistic if they try to do Kamala Harris and him? Because if Kamala Harris decides to stay, then